Welcome back, and we're moving into our first conversation for this morning as we get an update as to what's happening in Venezuela. We're joined by the Venezuelan Ambassador to Belize, Gerardo Antonio Argote. Good morning and welcome.
Morning. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for receiving me today, this morning.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's been a few months since we've had you on the show, where we started to talk about what was taking place in Venezuela. And there's been quite a bit of development since then. Just, I think, about 3 weeks ago, we saw an attempt for Juan Guaido to take over the leadership in Venezuela. And I want to use that as a jumping point to kind of set the backdrop as to where we are today.
Yes, we have almost 4 months with this.
Mm-hmm.
We are tired of that. I don't know what's happened with that guy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because on 23 of January, he self-proclaimed, he was sworn to himself as a president of my country in the middle of a street.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still with it. And he, as you said, almost two weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
we had an attempt of coup d'etat, and he stayed in the middle of a bridge and asked for support of the people, and no one's come, you know. Mm-hmm. So we're tired of that. And he asked for the support of the army, and only I suppose that 40 or 50 of them, mm-hmm. they support him. So this is a very strange situation, you know, because he is supporting from abroad, mm-hmm. you know, but not most of the people in Venezuela don't recognize him, you know, and it's created confusion, especially for the other countries around the world. Confusion about what? About the real strength of that guy, mm-hmm. because he can't control anything right now. He can't control any ministry, the army, you know. So it's a big problem right now.
Now, the moment you spoke of where Juan Guaido declared that he was going to attempt a takeover, he had believed that there were going to be military persons who were going to convert and support him. There were some who actually did, but that did not pan out at the end of the day. Now, the images that we saw, those of us outside of Venezuela, were the clashes that were taking place. We saw a military trooper running into a crowd of people, some very, very disturbing images. How do you respond to that when all eyes are on the country and what's taking place there, and we see this type of aggression taking place in protest?
Well, yes, we have seen those terrible images of that people, but it's not only the army or the police against that people, because that people at that moment they had guns. War guns. I don't know how they found it, because they were very well armed. Mm-hmm. They shoot against the policemen, the army, and also to the other people who are in the front that support President Maduro. And this is the typical scene of a coup d'etat, you know, because no one to know, or most of the media, they don't want to show that it was a coup d'etat. They want only to show that, well, maybe he started a riot against the government. No, it was a coup d'etat, and thanks God, because we don't see, we don't find many deaths, you know, because it was violent. As all of coup d'etat in Venezuela, we have been 20 years with this, and this is the second one that we have to live, you know, and this is a part of the aggression that is conformed from abroad against Venezuela and its institutions, and also against its president, and also against the people of Venezuela.
Now, I hear what you're saying in terms of the recognition of it as a coup, but my question has more to do with the fact that the entire world is watching what's happening in Venezuela. There's some countries that have already decided who they support in this particular power struggle, whether it be President Maduro or Juan Guaido. There are other countries that are looking on and still trying to decide. And when you see this type of violence taking place, and I think there's a disproportionate force between a military truck going into a crowd of people, armed or unarmed.
Yes.
It doesn't bode well for the position that you're putting forward.
It's a disproportional force, as you said, when you saw, when you see that at the pictures. But here we have to talk about a disproportional force that we can't see right now, and that anyone talks about this disproportional force. I mean, I would like to talk about the blockade, because nobody cares or nobody knows that. I have the block against the economy of Venezuela, which are created the conditions of the chaos, of a chaos of our economical, political, and social system. And we have to be clear about that, because we will see, and we will see all the pictures that you have told me. Okay, that's real.
Yes.
But it confirms about our situation, about chaotic situation. And it's chaotic because they blocking and confiscate our financial assets.
Yeah.
They provision all the negotiation of PDVSA debts, provision of operation with gold, confiscation of assets of Citgo and PDVSA. Citgo is a huge company inside the United States of America, and they took the company. So, and all of them that you see on the picture. I would like to tell you that they are create all the conditions in order to create violence in my country.
But Ambassador, I hear what you're saying, and I know that typically the message that comes out from Venezuela's government at this time is pitting the blame against the United States. And there are two issues here, and I keep on saying that. There is the power struggle that is taking place, but there are issues about how the Venezuelan people are living, and in this case, suffering. Millions of people. There's an exodus of Venezuelans moving out of the country because there's lack of medicine, there's lack of fuel, there's a food shortage, and there's even a challenge with electricity. People are suffering. But this didn't start in January when Juan Guaido declared himself as the new president. It was in fact taking place from long before. So talking separately about the issue of what is happening with the Venezuelan people is, for me, I think the most pertinent issue. So how do you respond to that? If there has been no improvement to the lives of the people in Venezuela, how are others who are looking on not to believe that perhaps maybe Guaido may be the better option?
Okay. Yes, I would like to tell you that it didn't start on January, no. Since 2014, the government of the United States has been implementing a set of unilateral coercive measures against the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, in clear violation of the Charter of the United Nations and on those international accepted human rights norms and principles. I would like to talk about those sanctions that started almost 4 years or 5 years ago. They are create the conditions, economical conditions of a chaos, and they want to break the system, the political system. And it's not fair to try to pass across the boat of more than 6 million of people. More than 6 million of people voted for Maduro last year in an election who was held on 20 of May of 2018. So
But is it not because of that election?
Yeah.
Because of discrepancies in that election that we saw this gaining of popularity of Juan Guaido and the legitimacy of that very same election, why he says he declares himself the president?
Well, yes. You see this beautiful small book? This is for us sacred book. This is our national constitution. In this book, our national constitution, you can find that name of a president for a moment, or president, I don't know. It's amazing for me because they create the fiction of that interim president, something like that. So we don't have this inside of this book, you know, because of course he went to an election as a congressman, not as a president. Mm-hmm. So if you want to be a president, go, take the head, take the streets, and go to an election as a president. But if you want to be a congressman, as he did, well, he is a congressman, and that's it. If you want to be a president of Venezuela, he would wait 4 years, go to an election, and win the election, as any democratic system, because we live in a democratic system, you know?
When you talk about unblocking Venezuela, as you say, from the sanctions that has been put on it, one of the clear messages that has come out specifically from the United States and also from other countries that do support and recognize Juan Guaido, you're talking the European Union and quite a number of other countries, they're saying that they are willing to work along with a new regime. So my question to you is there a possibility that President Maduro may recognize that perhaps the best option for him is to step aside or call a new election and exit the situation and allow for the people of Venezuela to be able to have a better life?
Well, we have to know that at the United Nations is conformed of 193 countries. Only 50 of them recognize that guy who was imposed by abroad. First. Second, you know that, as I told you, more than 6 million people vote for that guy. You can't erase that. You can't erase that people. Why? Because it's an internal affair of Venezuela. Any election, any referendum, anything are internal affair of the country, you know? So why or how you can't allow or you can't support the use of economical measures from abroad in order to change the regime, the political regimes, because it broke the international order. It's against the democracy and it's against the sovereignty of any country, you know?
Now, you say that, but yet within the past 24 hours, President Maduro is speaking of holding an elections, not a presidential election, but a parliamentary election, where Juan Guaido is currently the leader in that space.
Well,
so there's a willingness to have an election, but just one that seems to be more convenient.
Well, I would like to tell you that the parliamentary elections will be held on the next year.
Mm-hmm.
The next year. So President Maduro said that he will be agree if they want to make the elections 1 year before, if the people want to do that. You say that it's repeat me the question, please.
There's a willingness to have an election, but not the one that that the people are demanding for.
Yes, but who's the people? Who people?
Ambassador, there is a clear power struggle taking place in Venezuela from the outside, and I can only speak from the outside and by being able to follow up what's taking place in different media. I bring it back to one central issue each time. Any person looking into the situation there will feel sympathetic and empathetic towards people who are suffering. And that's what we see in Venezuela. So while I understand the government's position in being able to address whether it is sanctions or being able to talk about the power struggle that is taking place beyond just Guaido and Maduro, you're talking about the countries that back each of these particular candidates, I don't hear enough about what's in the best interest of the Venezuelan people.
I think that the best interest for the Venezuelan people is try to arrange all the problems between Venezuelan people. That's why we are talking about the negotiation, and we talk about speak between each other. Why? Because we don't want to hear the drums of war. The drums of war are everywhere right now. When I hear that strange and horrible phrase that they say, all the options are on the table, it's not good for me, and it's not good for any Venezuelan, it's not good for any Latin American and Caribbean people. Right now, we are in a deep process of negotiation between Venezuelans. And we have friendly countries. When I'm talking about friendly countries, I'm not talking about countries who are friendly with both sides. This is very important. Thank you for showing that. Do you see those banks? They are banks from Europe and they are banks from America. And those banks, they keep the money of the Venezuelan people. We're talking about $4.8 billion in only 9 banks, and this is not all. We have more than $34 billion frozen in many banks around the world.
What do you see as the way forward from here? What is the proposed solution?
Well,
you're 5 months in since Juan Guaido claimed that he's president. It has been an ongoing struggle. There's been continuous protests. The exodus of Venezuelans continue. The struggles continue. Where does it go from here?
Well, first, let's talk about the exodus, and then we can talk.
Yeah.
The exodus. Ask anyone Venezuelan in many countries. Ask if they went out of the country by political harassment, by religious, by any kind of matter. They went out by the economic situation, and the economic situation, of course, I can't deny that. I'm just arriving from Venezuela right now because my mother was ill, so I had to spend 4 hours of my time in a line in order to buy a medicine for my mother. I'm an ambassador, I'm a people. I belong to my people,
Did they have the medicine?
Yes, I found the medicine. But right now we are talking about the central point here is that economic situation that it was imposed by abroad. We can't have any access to international markets. Why? Because they don't like the guy who is the president, they don't like the system. Why? Why we can't have the freedom to be as a free country with freedom of speech or freedom of think? Why can't leave us a socialist country? And it's so rude for us, the situation of my country. And maybe you think, well, okay, what? But why they don't leave the country? Why don't leave the power? I mean, President Maduro. Because it's the right of any Venezuelan who votes for him to have the president that they choose, and also is in our national constitution. Why we have to accept that from abroad they are creating the conditions in order to break the political system of my country? This is not fair. And you could think in a very practical way. Okay, if the men go out, everything could change. And no, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to happen in my country, because the point here is not Maduro. The point here is is to know how to live with both or with different ways of thinking in my country, which is legal, which is normal in any country around the world. Because you could think different than mine, and I could think different than you, but we have to respect each other, and we can talk. We don't have to fight, and we don't have to go to the war, and we don't have to live under the menace of to be invaded by one of the most powerful countries around the world. So why we have to live with this? And I'm talking about not it's only my truth. It's the truth of the people who lives in my country, and it's so rude for me. I didn't receive this from another capital, and I have to read this, and this is my instruction. No, I live this because this is my day-to-day battle.
What was the experience like going back into Venezuela in the state it is now?
Well, my personal experience, I was on the line, and it was very sad, but at the same time, it's very grateful, because I start to speak with many of the people on the lines, and the people knew what's happening in my country, and all the range not is against Maduro, because my people, my citizens, they know what's happened. They know what's happened in my region. They know what's happened in the geopolitical, and they know, Venezuelans know, that we are the first reserve of oil around the world. We know that we are the fifth reserve of gas, natural gas around the world, and we know that we are between the 10 countries that most gold. We have a lot of gold too. So here, let's talk clear. They are not concerned about or the human rights or the democracy in my country, because I hear that. I hear that they said, well, why, if they a lot of oil there, why we don't take that? You know, I hear that. It was a public commentary, and another guy said with pride, no, we are killing people, we are lying people, and we are proud for that. No, this is not the way to do the things. I don't know if you saw what happened in my embassy at Washington, D.C.
Yes.
For Christ, this is not legal. Yeah. It's against any rule of the international law, and this is very dangerous. Why is it dangerous? Because it's creating...
And it's getting hostile.
Yes, and it's creating... it's like they're creating the conditions to repeat this with another embassy of whatever country. You understand what they say?
Now, and I think that is a separate issue, the takeover of the embassy in Washington. But what I asked, and I really want to hear in your capacity what your response is. You're looking at 4 or 5 months since this political turmoil has started. You have the entire world paying attention to what's happening in Venezuela. For many people, it's the first time they're opening their eyes to the actual daily struggle of Venezuelans. And it is very difficult to watch and to hear the stories, to see the long lines of people waiting for fuel, to people saying they can't get access to medicine, leaving the country by droves because they feel that they cannot survive in Venezuela any longer. One of the richest countries when it comes to resources cannot provide for its people. I hear your point very clearly that you're talking about being able to get the sanctions removed, get access to the funds in the banks, but you're at a stalemate. There doesn't seem to be any progress being made between the regime of President Maduro and those who hold the sanctions. So my question to you is, what's the strategy moving forward? How long do you stay in a stalemate and not be able to move out of the position that you are today?
Well, we have to wait what's going to happen right now in Europe. Have you heard about Norway and the negotiations in Norway? Right now, there are a process of negotiation in Norway between both sides, but between Venezuelans, with any pressure from abroad. Let's wait, because I'm sure that talking and negotiate is the way to get out of the crisis. We need to find the way. We need to find the path in order to start with a process of dialogue. And I know that we could be able to do that. You have seen many moments in the world that in worst crisis, the crises are get to the end, to the happy end. I hope so. Why not? Why we can't do that? I know that in Venezuela has many interests, many eyes are looking at Venezuela, and this is the problem right now, because with those amount of eyes, we can't arrive to a peaceful negotiation. It's difficult, but we have to do that.
How so? How does the international attention make it difficult to find a resolution?
Did you know that in 2017, when it was a negotiation process in Venezuela between both sides, the head of the delegation of the opposite, he received a call from abroad, and he stopped all the negotiations with the government, and it's not a secret. He received a call, and he said so. That guy, his name is Borges, Julio Borges. Right now he lives in Bogota. And he said so. That's why I told you that.
So, the negotiations taking place in Norway is the primary hope that you have in reaching a resolution to this struggle?
I know. Well, I feel that this is one of the best ways, because I'm a diplomat. I believe in the negotiation, of course, but also I believe in the strength of the people of Venezuela. Both sides, because both sides must know that the worst condition for my country is to arrive to a war. This is the point here, and I believe in the strength of my people to find the way to understand each other, both sides. The negotiation in Norway it's a point, okay, it's a good point, but to understand each other inside my country, for me, this is the best way. Yeah, and I have seen in my country that I have seen how the people on the streets start to talk without fight, without shout. Start to talk, simple talk. Okay, let's find a way. Okay, you have to know that we have this problem. Okay, how we can resolve between Venezuelans. But we have to be clear right now that the point, the focal point here is the blocked. And you could think, why the block against the block? Why he said the block again? Did you know that we have right now more than 40,000 deaths in Venezuela by the block? Because we can't find insulin for diabetics or the medicine for the people who are sick with the knees.
Let me ask a question. We're running out of time very quickly, and I wanna get this question in before we conclude. What is the possibility? I mean, again, I say there are two issues here. There is the right to self-determination, which is always a key issue when we talk about what's happening in Venezuela. But we also need to understand, or want to understand, what are the options on the table to perhaps have some progress with the challenges that are taking place in the ground. What are the possibilities, or has it been discussed, that a new election be called in Venezuela and have the Venezuelan people once again legitimately choose who they want to be their leader?
Because this book says that the election must be held in 4 years, and we can change that, even if you see that the situation are wrong right now in Venezuela, but the only way to get better the things is not only a new election, presidential election, because the governmental side and more than 7 million of people, or more than 6 million of people, won't accept that, because it will be against their position, against their vote, and it's against our democratic values.
And what of the possibility of President Maduro stepping aside? Early in this situation, there was talks about whether or not he would step aside and perhaps negotiating an exit plan for him out of the country.
I don't think so. I don't see so. Right now, I can't see President Maduro besides. No, because he's right to be the chief of the government, to be the chief of the army by the votes of the Venezuelan. It's different right now.
Sorry.
It's difficult right now for me to see that scenario.
What are your thoughts on whether or not there'll be another attempt on taking over the leadership of the country?
Could be, because always we are expecting something in Venezuela. 2 weeks ago, in terms of coup d'etat, maybe 1 week ago, we had a little invasion because a boat from the West Coast of the United States, he entered into our territory without permission of Venezuela, and he stayed there for some minutes, and then he go out. That's why I tell you, always something's happening in Venezuela. Something happened against Venezuela. The acts of the embassy in Washington D.C. in everything in 3 weeks. It's amazing. You know, if I expect a coup d'etat, yes, could be. Why? Because they need they wait and they need and they desire, you know, to get Maduro out of the power, because he represents a lot of, or he's against a lot of economical interest from the international elites, and those interests are oil. That's it.
All right. So we appreciate you coming in to have this conversation with us this morning. I think a lot of people, as I've said, have started to pay attention to what's taking place in Venezuela, and we appreciate you coming in to share your perspective.
I really appreciate that you received me in your TV show, and I really appreciate also your questions, because your questions for me that involve research, as I told you. And of course, no, most of the questions I wouldn't like most of the questions, but this is the point to be a journalist, and this is the point to be a diplomat. I came here with the truth of the Venezuelan people, and you ask questions, and this is the clue.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about an animated movie about Tata Duende. So stay tuned.